We are here at Scott Grimes' house in his home studio.
Nick and I, as you guys, can I say, we're like great friends for many, many years. So
yeah, it's just hard to talk to you in a professional setting.
It is. I like this though. This is cool.
Hey, Nick Marzock with American Dad. With Full Compass, we are continuing our pro series with voiceover because at Full Compass, we know VO. In the last video, I sat down with Mike Henry and Patrick Clark of Family Guy, but conveniently right across the hall is, of course, American Dad. They share the same studio space, and it stars and was created by Seth MacFarlane, but this show stands on its own in every other way. One of my great friends is a lead actor on the show, the immensely talented Scott Grimes. He is an actor in huge projects. We are in bands together. That guy has a freaking voice. And he is, of course, the voice of Steve Smith. So I went out to his home studio, I set up my cameras. The one on me is blurry. I'm filming it myself. But his looks great, and that's what matters, because he's the talent. And we talked about his setup, his characters, but first, the crazy backstory that got him into show business. Now, I'm gonna try so hard to be serious with Scott, but that's not always easy to do.
We lived in Massachusetts, and my dad and my mother decided to take a train to New York City for the weekend, just for a vacation.
It was steam-powered.
Yep, exactly. We rode our way up the Merrimack River, and we were walking down the street. It was like a Saturday or a Sunday, which also made it odd that they were having an open audition for a new Broadway show on 46th Street. We just walked by this theater, and they were like, come on in and sing for Tommy Tune. And he was the director of this new show called Nine, which was an adaptation of a Fellini movie called 8 1/2. Mm-hmm. And I went in, we were leaving on the train the next morning, and I went in and sang in front of Tommy Tune, and he ran out to my parents and was like, where do you live? They're like, we're in Massachusetts. Well, you're not going home for at least a year. He hired me on the spot. That Monday, we started rehearsing.
Whoa.
And we stayed at that, my mom and I lived at that Sheraton City Squire. So that's how I got my start. I was doing nothing over here in Massachusetts, and now I'm on a Broadway show that won Best Musical 4 months later.
And the winner is Nine. Tommy Tune.
Critters, there was like this era of you doing those things, but since then, Band of Brothers, Ted that's on now, Oppenheimer that just won a bunch of Oscars.
Yep.
What was the project that turned everything?
There was a couple years where it was just auditioning, not really getting anything. Mm-hmm. You just have to keep fighting. You lose a lot of people in that stage because they don't feel like fighting anymore.
Yeah.
And there is a fight in it. It would have been Band of Brothers.
Patrol?
There's a project that comes around once every 10 years where every actor's like, Oppenheimer would be one of them.
Yeah.
Every actor wanted to do Band of Brothers. And I just think it had to do with being a redhead. Everybody was
because of your character, Malarkey?
Who didn't have red hair. Don Malarkey looked like Brad Pitt.
Uh-huh.
But I think Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg thought that the name like Malarkey should have some sort of Irish...
Oh, Malarkey!
Right.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I got super duper lucky with just, here's the redhead, who's he going to play? Well, there's only one guy, Malarkey.
Yeah. When Scott records for American Dad, on the other side of that signal is the lead engineer and dialogue editor, Janice Cruz Brooks. I'm still in the American Dad Family Guy offices. They can't get me to leave. I love these shows. And I want to know all about American Dad's recording process. But first, Janice has quite an amazing background herself. Janice, thanks so much for meeting with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. How long have you been with American Dad?
Well, I started in 2019 for both shows. Then the lead guy for American Dad left in 2021, and I took his job.
And before that, you were with SNL?
I was. I was on SNL for 5 seasons.
What was your job on SNL?
I did multiple things. I was in the music department and the sound department.
Yeah.
So beginning of the week, I was in the writer's room during table read, working with the writers, sound designing their sketches, trying to get them on air because there's 40 sketches that start in the morning. Mm-hmm. There's a table read. They're basically trying to narrow down 40 to 45 sketches down to 10.
Now, like, I almost want to do a whole other video on SNL because I'm so fascinated with like live A.
Oh, yeah.
B, it's
Well, then the second part of my job was I was a production mixer live in the studio so we would rehearse from Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so it was sort of like a split up job. Before that, I did a show called Dora the Explorer. For 15 years, from beginning to end, I was on Dora. So,
have you always been Pro Tools?
Yes.
You grew up with Pro Tools.
Yes. So my husband and I met at Berkeley. We went to Berkeley College of Music.
Wow.
When we were there,
She thinks she's better than me.
when we were there, they were just starting to teach Pro Tools, so I barely knew it. And when we moved to New York in 2000, I lied and said that I knew Pro Tools at this record label. And I called my friend and was like, dude, I have a session. I need your help. And he just walked me through it. And I got a job there as like the house engineer for this label.
You're over leveraged.
I was like, I need a job.
Yeah.
I overheard the record label like owner saying, I'm pretty sure JC doesn't know how to use Pro Tools. But they still kept me. It was a good way to learn. Got paid learning Pro Tools. So
I know this system's kind of new. Everything was, aboard before. Adjustment phase, getting used to S1 controllers, which I love so much.
I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. At SNL, they brought in a brand new SSL like live. It was when they first came out. I had to learn in like 3 days before a live show.
American Dad has been on for 20 seasons and counting, well over 300 episodes, and Scott's character is central to the comedy of that show. So let's talk about Steve Smith and how Scott came up with the voice and the nature of that character.
Seth MacFarlane and I were great friends. And the closer you are to somebody, the more you kind of don't want to disappoint them. I did audition, and I'll never forget it. Remember when you were burning a CD and it took 6 hours? I had made this voice that I came up with. It was Steve Smith, but I did something in my neck like this that really hurt. And I couldn't, in hindsight, could not sustain that for the 19 years we've been doing this.
Yeah.
And I did this, I made the CD, and I sent it to Seth. What were we texting in 2003, 2004?
Fido,
yes.
take a message.
To Seth. MacFarlane. He's going to Green's house, isn't he? And I said, yeah, I messaged you over a CD. Did you get it? He goes, yeah, I got it. And it's really good, but you still got to come in. I really thought that he'd go, this CD is beautiful. And I walked in, and I did the voice for Seth. MacFarlane says, okay, I like that voice. Do the same thing, but just straighten your neck out. Just do the same voice you were doing, and stop doing that. Right?
Yeah.
And what came out was this. If he had said, all right, give me something else. I didn't have anything else.
To the Nick
Back. No, I got this, I got this, I got this and this. Those are the two things, yes. I guess I'm a voiceover actor, but I use that term to compliment the people that really are voiceover actors. People that can do this kind of, like D. Bradley Baker, Bob Bergen. These people that have such a diverse library of... D. Bradley on American Dad, he played a spleen. They literally went, what's writing a spleen? Who can do the voice? D will come up with something. D will come up with what a spleen sounds like. And who knows what a spleen sounds like? You know who does? D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah.
So I can't put myself in that category. Then over the course of the next year or two, we developed the kind of suaveness about Steve. So all these little things that make him what he is today just came giving him some sort of kind of sway and bravado that adds to the character and all the
And then the singing numbers and all the...
That came out of the singing. It was an episode. I'm trying to help my dad, so I set up a ladder and I'm cleaning the windowsills on the second floor. And the line was, I'm gonna make my dad happy. I'm gonna do his chores. And I came up with this idea. I'm like, let me sing it. Like, and I was like, so I did making dad happy, doing his chores, doing his chores. It really wasn't a melody.
That's not what BMI says.
Yeah, my buddy.
BMI's like, that's a melody.
Right.
No, we got that. We're in the
You're
map.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Seth's idea. I don't know whose idea it was to start doing musical episodes. Like we've done tons.
Oh no.
Let's go back to the studio with Janice. I'm still not leaving. Because as I mentioned before, they share a control room and a booth, a live room, with Family Guy. But the engineer, Janice, the showrunner, and the production crew are all different, so American Dad does things differently. Do you use the same stuff as Family Guy. I know that the sound, so the 193 microphones.
Yes.
Into the
carbon?
Carbon, thank you.
Yes, the carbon.
The Avid Carbon. So everything you're doing is in the box, basically, outside of that.
Yes.
Compressors. How much of that are you doing? Do you leave that for post, or are you also getting into, compressing and EQ?
Well, on American Dad, we do a lot more of that before it goes to the stage, because the showrunner wants to be able to hear it clearly through every step.
Yeah.
I'll do if he do something he asks, but I'll try to do the least amount of processing possible. Now, if I've done too much processing, I also have to make sure I have I have an untouched raw version of that piece of dialogue, because I don't want to step on toes. And
what compressors are you using typically within
box.
Pro Tools? Yeah.
Well, we have kind of made a decision to only use like the native plugins, because we also have a third person that may or may not have the other plugins.
Yeah.
And so we want to have a uniform set of plugins and keep it as simple as possible. So we really only use the native one.
Yeah.
When we're like using an outside studio, we request no compression at all. So we have the control of adding it or not. Every once in a while, we'll get some audio that isn't great, and our showrunner, Matt Weitzman, the showrunner, will say, can you do some EQing on this so it matches the rest of the dialogue?
Yeah.
If I could, I would be using, the Fab Filter, Pro Q.
Yeah, Pro Q.
I love that. But like I have a podcast with the showrunner from Family Guy and another writer from Family Guy.
A baby shouldn't be in pajamas all day. A baby should be in little corduroys and suspenders.
And ready to work.
See, that is the way you were brought up.
And I can do whatever I want because it's not like a system that's already in place.
Yeah.
So it is pretty basic on our productions.
These are two of the biggest animated shows in history, let alone like right now on television.
Yeah.
Like you would think it's just all kinds of output racks and like everything's so lean here.
Yes.
But it makes it repeatable and consistent, which is great, especially after COVID.
Yes.
I'm putting myself in your shoes for a recording because especially Steve, where like Roger's, kind of like consistently here. But Steve, he could be, this sweet. And then he's like, what?
And I have lines as Steve Smith where I'll start and I'll be like, hey, Dad, I have to tell you something.
Yeah. How are you controlling that?
I will say, since COVID.
How much of your percentage-wise, how much are you in here tracking versus it at 20th?
Since COVID, 99.9% of the time I'm here.
COVID. The chapter in everybody's book where everything changed. Like every show went through, but especially in animation, American Dad had to figure out how they could keep recording and making episodes when no actors could come into the studio. So you're putting the tech in the hands of actors. Scott's recorded many albums. Luckily, he's the type that could pull that off, right?
I was stuck in Austin, Texas. I loved the fact that Matt Weitzman and Jason, all these people over there, just had this idea that we could keep this part of the industry going during a time when everything had stopped.
When everyone went home and recorded remotely, Scott takes care of the levels.
That's great.
They're recording us over there through Source Connect,
Source Connect,
right?
yeah.
But it's still our microphone and our gain and feed, I believe, that's going to them.
I will be listening through Source Connect, so a nice clean thing. But after so many years, they know, our main characters know when to bring it down.
JC's great because I'll just hear her, I'll scream something, and just as I'm about to see it spike, I'll hear her, Scott.
But if it's peeking out, I'll just chime in, hey, Scott, can you bring it down? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, Janice, gotcha. Turn your gain down.
Honestly, they've become pretty amazing engineers over this pandemic.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
I've just recently discovered this is how much Steve Smith screams. The pad, right? The pad even turns it down more, and then you turn it up.
Yep. How difficult was it? Because everyone had their own, just the sound of the room they're in, like the liveliness is different.
It was difficult. It created a lot of stress. It created a lot of learning to adapt.
I couldn't wait. They were going to send me gear to start, but I'm like, I went to the store and I bought it because I really wanted this to work. And at first it was an iPad that we were recording on, and it was a closet where you just hung all your clothes around you. And then we figured out the Source Connects and
I have a whole folder of manuals for microphones, audio interfaces, everything that you can think of, because we didn't know what was the cause of an issue. Sometimes it was the mic.
Spectrum is out,
Yes.
and that's giving you weird
Yes, like
something, or
dropouts
there's
or-
interference because his phone's too close to the...
Right. If I'm in a studio and I'm not getting signal, I can say, here is the signal flow.
Yep.
When you are doing this virtually, you can say that, but you actually can't confirm it because you're not in the room.
Yep.
There's some technical things while you're trying to act. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's distracting and wonderful. And it feels like you're part of this team that is now, when I watch American Dad that's on, I'm like, that was in a closet in Austin,
Yeah.
Texas. That was in here. That was,
I came into this job at Family Guy and American Dad with 20 plus years audio experience already. And never in my lifetime would I have predicted that I would learn another level of engineering was beyond my conception.
Yeah.
now, most of the cast of American Dad lives, somebody's in Maine, somebody's in Colorado. There's also a technical side of this that I thoroughly enjoy because I'm terrible at that, and I feel like I'm not. I feel like I feel like what they taught me that I can do mobily like this,
Yeah.
I could go to the moon.
Yeah.
If you said, build me a ship to go, I can do that. Why? Because I can record mobily, so I can build a spaceship to go to the moon.
Did we make it to Mars?
Since Scott is mostly remote and Janice does a lot of remote work, they both need really great gear and great spaces at home to record or mix. So let's get into home studios. What is your recording setup?
I'll tell you this. I record into these 103s, and I only know 103s through you. No, it's true. Everything that I record into, that Apollo,
Yeah.
right? The 103s, and the actual Pro Tools.
No, you knew Pro Tools before, though. You were
I
recording
knew how to
your
record
stuff.
live.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do the things.
So when did you get is that a whisper room? What is the...
This was like an emergency when I got back from Austin.
Yeah.
I didn't have, I wanted
Nice
I got to do this
move.
permanent.
Yeah.
So I called, some company just came up and they came and threw that together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
But
then
me,
what do you
it's just me
use-
and the 103s in there.
What do you use this one for? This is the Apollo 8P.
This is the Apollo 8P, and yes, I use this for bigger things.
Yeah.
Use this to record music, which
Yeah.
you and I do for American Dad often, and just it has more inputs in the back. So, because the one we record with American Dad
Is the two inputs.
Yeah, you can only put like the two 103s in the back. Yeah. And the Apollo HP, that's been the guy for me. 8P. It's Apollo 8P. Remember the HP?
That's the printer
That
that
was the
prints
printer.
the lyrics
that I
for your-
need for yeah.
It's perfect. Do you have a home studio set up?
I have a home studio. I'm also work remotely most of the time, so
yeah.
I do have my own American Dad Family Guy setup, and then downstairs we have a studio. My husband is also a musician and a producer, and we collaborate a lot. He co-produced the last Danny Elfman
Oh, wow.
record and remix record, and I produce the vocals. So I do. That's what I do outside of here is vocal production
Yeah.
for music. There's a new record coming out, or DVD release, and I did all the vocals for that. Yeah, I love it.
Congratulations to
Thank
both of you. That's really cool.
Thank you.
To wrap it up, let's talk about voice. Scott plays Maddie on Peacock's TED series, and I don't know how he sustains that level of energy and volume over the course of a whole season of television.
I'm sure we'll understand.
No, you won't. This was war.
That character seemed very difficult just from a standpoint of you were screaming. Speaking of screaming, you were up here the whole time.
I brought that home too. It was like this angry guy all the time, and Seth and I decided like we were going big or we're not doing it all. That anybody, including the people that might recognize themselves in this guy, would go, "What an idiot!
Yeah.
What an idiot! I'm gonna laugh at this idiot." And he's teachable too,
Yeah.
right? If you go extreme, he's teachable. So voice to Seth is so important, and I never realized it more as much as I did on Ted, where the voice, because him as Ted, like he's recording it at the time. He has cameras around him.
For
and he's
performance capture?
Yeah. So let's say Ted looks over here. Seth's nowhere near us. So if he has to look at somebody here, he has the pages there to look, and he's being recorded.
No
and
way.
his voice is so strong.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, him as Ted, him as anybody. Stan is the biggest one.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I don't know.
That woman's wearing a sweatshirt with a wolf on it.
And so I realized a long time ago that if you want to be heard, you know, you got it. And it's not about volume.
Mm-hmm.
Speak into that microphone. Let that microphone hear you, right? Those 103s and I, they pick up that. Ah,
it is.
Here's one now.
It's great because a lot of voiceover people use shotgun microphones.
Oh yeah.
And the thing is they're hypercardioid. So like you have to be, that's like
A couple
the
nights
industry
ago, my
standard.
hypercardioid started to hurt a little, and I was like, I gotta call Nick. Well, Nick, thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for meeting with us. This was so entertaining.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Huge thank you to Scott Grimes and Janice Cruz Brooks for sitting down with me to talk about American Dad. And thank you for watching. Follow us and subscribe to Full Compass for more interviews, gear reviews, bonus footage, and more great content for you, the pro. Pros follow Full Compass. I'm Nick Marzock. Thank you so much for watching. Go to fullcompass.com right now to get all the gear that we talked about in this video and so much more in pro audio, video, musical instruments, lighting, DJ, you name it, it's on there. Take it away, Steve.
Hi, this is Steve Smith from American Dad. Go to fullcompass.com.
All right.
So great.
All right.